The world is marked by deepening turbulence and uncertainty, with conflicts occurring at a level not seen since the end of the Second World War. In such a volatile landscape, security has become more critical than ever. 4 years ago, at the Boao Forum for Asia, the Global Security Initiative was proposed in response to these growing challenges. It puts forward a vision of common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security, emphasizing that no country can pursue its own security at the expense of others. At a time when division and confrontation are once again on the rise, its call for dialogue, mutual respect, and shared responsibility resonates with renewed urgency. It also leaves us a pressing question. Can the future of global governance be built on cooperation rather than conflict? Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to CGTN's special program, The Power of Ideas. I'm your host, Huang Jiyuan. Today, we gather for a timely discussion titled History's Crossroads, The Future of Global Governance. We're honored to have three distinguished speakers with us today to share their perspectives. They are Mr. Djoomart Otorbaev, former Prime Minister of Kyrgyzstan, Mr. Danilo Türk, former President of Slovenia, Professor Wang, Dean of Chongyang Institute for Financial Studies at Renmin University of China. Chinese President Xi Jinping proposed the Global Security Initiative 4 years ago. How does that initiative that was born 4 years ago contribute to today's global security regime? Perhaps, Mr. Türk, you can start.
I think that all four initiatives that were voiced by President Xi showed a way forward. China obviously has a vision, and that vision is now put before the whole world. But China knows that nothing can be imposed. China does not wish to impose any formula on others, and that's very important, really. Therefore, the four initiatives, including the Global Security Initiative, are an invitation to a discussion to define that new security system, which can only come about as a result of an agreement. Unfortunately, we nowadays see very little capacity for that. If you look at the United States, the current leadership of the United States is not really interested in working with others. It's more interested in imposing its own ideas, its own will, with sometimes rather detrimental effects. If you look to other parts of the world, you will see that there is a degree of confusion and also lack of sense of direction. So I think that one has to appreciate what was achieved by the initiatives. They showed the direction. And obviously that direction cannot be implemented overnight. It will take time, it will require modifications, it will require compromises, but the direction is there. And that, I think, is by far the most important.
Professor, since Mr. Türk mentioned compromises, a lot of countries in the world today don't want to compromise on anything. So how can we expect others to compromise?
I agree with Mr. Türk's opinion. I think nowadays it's really a very hard time. In the past 4 years, there are so many military conflicts happened. It's a tragedy. So many civilians died in Gaza, in Iran, in Russia, in Ukraine, in a few countries in Africa, even a few countries, Latin American. So nowadays, I think it's a very right, very key timing for tasting the responsibilities of big power, especially big power. Our best to push, to promote the peaceful negotiation. Just encourage all the parts of conflict, just sit together and negotiate and push the peaceful solution. I think this is very important.
Mr. Otorbaev, how are the global South countries viewing the current turbulence in the global system?
I cannot answer for all global South countries, but I want to provide my personal opinion on that respect. Security architecture not performing its role. For many years, not Middle East these days only. Look to these events in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, does the unilateral actions of some powerful countries in those places brought world to a more safer status or not? No. In that respect, we have to ask what should be done next. We must look how to revise it. But those who make unilateral actions not yet listen it. So more lessons they will get before they would agree that something would happen. And current event in the Middle East, very powerful example of that old order of jungle law doesn't work. So again, the Global South countries should unite in provide more common voice. One common powerful voice will be heard everywhere. How to make it? I think that the clusterization of approach would be a useful instrument. We have BRICS, powerful economical countries around the world get united. We have Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which demonstrate that even bigger countries with sometimes different interests, look, India, Pakistan, China, Iran, members, full members of SCO, we find a common ground. We're coming out with resolution, legally binding decisions. So this clusterization could grow, or take ASEAN, perfect example of cooperation among the countries. So maybe this architecture of different clusters could not merge, but could unite in providing common voice.
But right now, protectionism, economic protectionism are rampaging throughout the globe. It's not just staying with the United States, it's all over the place. How can we make sure that there are continued economic cooperation while there's a very strong force on the outside saying, I don't want to work with you?
My definition of sanctions and tariffs is very straightforward. Sanctions and tariffs is recognition of defeat. Those who can't compete in free market, they erected the borders and walls. Very simple. So in order to be competitive, you must perform. And when something gets isolated, look to the countries around the world which were isolated. They never will move healthy in economic development. Only competition and cooperation will improve economics of any entity, any country, any nation. So erecting barriers and beginning of the end of economic prosperity. That is why it is short-minded, this approach, when you do it. In our part of the world, Central Asia, we are smaller than China. We want to cooperate with China, but we want to compete with China. Only that way will be healthy development. Mm-hmm. When you remove from competition, nothing will happen. Economics will not develop. Then win-win cooperation, additivity of different models and different jurisdiction can build harmonized world. I believe that our cooperation with China will be exemplary around the world, which many other countries would take example, and many other countries will learn how to do it together. Because we work harmoniously together, everybody listening, not insisting, but cooperating.
Mr. Otorbaev just said was about healthy competition, where we can all grow together. What about the unhealthy ones, when people use security as a reason to say, no, we don't want to compete with you, we're just going to build up walls around ourselves?
Well, I think that he also explained the unhealthy character of current policies. This whole idea of reverting back to higher tariffs as an instrument of managing global economic relations, this is very harmful. This is very bad. And one of the things, and I believe that that's really an important principle here, is let us at least restore some of the arrangements that have proven in the recent past to lead the world forward. Let's restore what was already good. And let me give you a couple of examples. First, in the field of international trade, you see, there was an evolution since 1950s on reduction of tariffs. There were consecutive rounds of trade negotiations which reduced tariffs very seriously, very, very dramatically. And it was felt that the era of tariffs is more or less behind us, that's history. Then there were non-tariff barriers, such as the anti-dumping measures and other measures which do not focus on tariffs, and also that was regulated successfully. Then there was a need to move beyond trading in goods to trading in services as well, and also that was accomplished. And on top of everything, there was an international judiciary institution established, an international court within the World Trade Organization to deal with trade disputes. So you see, we have had over decades very positive development, which have produced very good institutional outcomes. Now, the appellate body of the court of the World Trade Organization is now blocked because the United States doesn't want to appoint its judge into that. And of course, the whole system is now paralyzed. So I think that the first condition would be to end this politics of paralyzing the existing institutions and trying to restore what was good and what was already achieved. You don't have to change the world completely. You have to restore some of the good arrangements from the recent past. You have to avoid creating obstacles as a result of political whim or political will, if we wish. That's one example. On the security side, you see, when I represented my own country in the United Nations in the period between 1992 and 2000, I was there for 8 years in New York. And then I went to work in the Secretariat as an assistant to the Secretary General Kofi Annan at that time. But in 1992, it looked as if, well, the world has changed. There will be no veto anymore because the atmosphere, the global atmosphere was improved, and the need for better cooperation was very widely recognized. And there were many in the United Nations who believed no, veto is a matter of the past. Well, veto came back in about 3 years afterwards, and it came back on an issue which is really not a critical issue for relations among big powers. It was about Cyprus. It was a kind of a more technical resolution which created disagreement among members of the Security Council, including permanent members, and then, of course, veto was used to stop the process. Now, what I'm trying to say is this. You see, the world is not only moving forward, the world can and has experienced regressions. And one way of moving forward is to think very carefully of what needs to be restored from the good arrangements of the recent past and what has to be added as a very new quality or a new institutional arrangement. Now, in this context, the four initiatives of President Xi are very useful because they define the direction. They, of course, do not offer a specific institutional arrangements. They do not impose any solutions, but they say, look, if we want to make progress, we have to go in that particular direction. And in order to go that direction, I would add this to the thought of President Xi. Well, there are certain things of the recent past which have to be restored, which were unfortunately abandoned recently, but have to be brought back because they create the stability which we need in order to move forward. You see, that's the kind of general line that I would advocate. And look, I know things are complicated and will take time.
Yeah, it definitely will. Professor, why do we see this regression so rapidly happening right before our eyes in the Middle East or in Central America, while there's another force in Asia saying that we cannot go back to the past? Why do we see this contrast, especially now?
I think now more and more media and more and more people, they always compare the responsibilities of China and the US. And also even some Western media, they still criticize the US under the President Trump administration. They identify and regard US as a troublemaker, new troublemaker of the international system. So that's a key. And China, why nowadays in Asia, especially in East Asia and Central Asia, why we have no war or military conflict? I think China's responsibility, a stable responsibility, and multilateralism approach is a key element for the international stability in Asia. If China abandoned multilateralism, what will happen in Asia? Of course, we have we admit we have so many differences with our neighbor countries, with Philippines, with Japan, with India, but we have full patience to solve those differences with our neighbor countries with peaceful way. We don't want to like the US. If you don't listen to me, I beat you. So I sincerely suggest my American friends, you need to keep patience. You need to have your big power responsibility. You need to use your wisdom to solve your differences in the world. You need to respect everyone and push the international peace. That's your responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Türk, right now we're seeing a lot of challenges to global governance. Do you think these challenges rise out of the declining will to cooperate, or because the institutions are outdated, they are not enough to deal with these challenges anymore?
Well, everybody can understand that the institution which was created in a particular historic moment cannot last forever without change. The institutions also have to adjust. And that adjustment of institutions takes different forms and sometimes happens quickly, sometimes it happens over a longer period of time. For example, after the ending of the Cold War, that was in early 1990s, there was a period of time when the cooperation among major powers in the United Nations Security Council was relatively good, and it was possible for the Council to take decisions which were not possible before. So the existing institutions can still play a useful role. The General Assembly of the United Nations adopted a resolution last year in August to convene a global conference on artificial intelligence, which will take place this year in Geneva. That shows that the global institutions of today can do useful work, but that is not guaranteed, and that it will be necessary to change them, to reform them. Now, how exactly should that reform look depends on the variety of factors. What I would like to emphasize is, let us not believe that things are immutable. Things can sometimes change very quickly, and I believe that on the issues such as artificial intelligence, the change will come quickly and somewhat unexpectedly.
Is the world still ready to cooperate?
Yes, I think the answer to that is yes. But of course, the cooperation among states, or cooperation more generally, always proceeds from the interests of those who cooperate. It shouldn't be asserted that the principle of cooperation takes over and it has precedence over national interest. I mean, it's the other way around. You know, of course, everybody wants to cooperate, but cooperate in pursuit of its own interests. And that is what makes cooperation difficult. Right now, we see very dramatic aspects of this problem in the war in the Gulf region, in the Middle East, and so forth, which, of course, would require a specialized discussion. But let us not forget the national interest, the interest of the unit, the person, the organization, the state, is always the beginning, and everything else happens afterwards.
We'll definitely come back to the war in a bit, but first I want to focus on big picture questions. So, Professor, how do you respond to concerns saying that with the different approaches to international relations, that there might be a fragmented world order in the future?
I think it depends how do you identify or regard those different international reform approach. Nowadays, some Western big power, they want to launch the revolution of the international system. They are dissatisfied with the existing international system. But for all the emerging economy, especially China, India, Brazil, we want to maintain the core of the UN Charter. So I think we just want to push the international system reform. We don't want to revolution, especially for China. China launched so many initiatives. In 2013, we have a Belt Road Initiative, and from 2022, we have a Global Development Initiative, and then Global Security Initiative, Global Civilization Initiative, and the Global Governance Initiative. But China's initiative or China's approach of international system reform, we don't want to force anyone to obey our initiative. We just provide the public goods. If you want to cooperate with us, yes, we appreciate. If you don't want, no problem. We just wait. We respect you. So I think this is the mutual respect. We just want to push the sustainable development and sustainable reform, or visible or useful pragmatical reform of the international system. That's China's approach.
Why does reform fits with the developing countries better?
I think sometimes from a lot of developing countries, especially for some big power, they feel anxiety about his existing hegemony position. So sometimes their media launch those propaganda or those approach to demonize the emerging economy. That's very obvious. If you look at those leading Western medias, most of the news about China are negative. They're talking about peak China, even the coming collapse of China, even they demonize China approach, demonize China Belt Road Initiative. But no problem. I think most of the people in the world, their eyes is blind. Their brain is very clearly. They know which approach is perfect or which approach is much better. So I think what China do now is don't concern too much or worry too much about Western criticism. We just keep the self-confidence and do our own things much better than before. Focus on our domestic solution. That will make the things better and better.
Mr. Otorbaev, what are some of the key structural barriers to conduct those reforms in the world today?
So the voice of Global South unproportionally low. Should it be continued or should it be reformed? It should be reformed. And I just put an example in International Monetary Fund quote, European countries have the similar size of economy as China's, but European countries maintained more than 26% of voting rights in IMF, in contradiction to China's 6%. So the big difference. And then proposal is that why don't we look deeper into this process, and why don't we give more voice to Global South? Or Global South should be put aside. Yeah, everybody understands this, but the process of reforms will not be painless. There is some kind of inertia which we've got from result of Second World War, dominance of the global North. So the term is that main issue is that current governance system is not working. The sharpest example we just got from events in the Middle East. Governance doesn't work. Few people decide to bomb independent country, kill innocent people. Some people decide to remove elected presidents from the power. This governance system not working. Why don't we take United Nations architecture and reform it, including the reforms of UN Security Council? Because UN Security Council not performing its role, which it must perform for different reasons. So the intention of Global South country is to brainstorm of what should be done to improve global governance infrastructure.
Thank you very much for your thoughts and insights. And I want to thank all of you for being here with us today. We truly appreciate everyone's presence. At this historical juncture, joint efforts and shared responsibility will guide us towards a better governed world. What we need to do is be vigilant and persistent. Thank you all for being with us and for watching this special edition of The Power of Ideas. See you next time.